I went to the rostrum and looked out and saw a huge room full of people looking at me. All of a sudden, I felt my stomach tighten and my hands went clammy and started to tremble. I was very surprised because I'm used to appearing in public, so I wasn't expecting to feel anything like that. So what I did was nothing. I just stood there and I noticed my feelings. First of all, I noticed my breathing, and I got used to standing where I was. I thought for a moment about what I was going to say and how much I believed in it, and I accepted that my body was excited. I was excited. I didn't have to call it stage fright or lack of confidence. I was excited. And that added a spark to my presentation. Then, when I felt ready to speak, I began. Now, this was a fairly simple little incident, but it shows three things. Firstly, you never know when you're going to be surprised, because I had no idea I was going to feel anything like that when I stood up. Secondly, it reminded me of the value of patience. I simply took my time to notice what I felt and got used to it. I didn't rush away from my feelings by diving straight into my presentation in a terrible rush. And when I acknowledged how I felt, it wasn't overwhelming. It helped to notice my breathing and to let that be calm as well. Thirdly, I reminded myself that the feeling I felt wasn't good or bad. It was just what I felt. And I could choose to call it fear or stage fright or eagerness or excitement. And I chose to call it excitement. I was reminded of this when I was sent a tape of my presentation, and I heard the pause before I started to speak. That was the pause I took to make room for my confidence. There are lots of ways you can make room for confidence in your life. In conversations, we can practice confident listening. Confident listening is allowing yourself to concentrate fully on the other person's speech. It means that rather than preparing what I'm going to say, I really listen to you. And so often when I listen well, what I need to say, and when it's okay to say nothing, becomes much clearer. When I hear the rhythm of the conversation, I discover that there are plenty of times when silence is appropriate. By listening with patience, I make room for confidence in my conversations. The same is true with actions and feelings. Patience makes room for confidence. Turn your attention outward to the world while acknowledging what you feel. But don't judge or compare or worry. Stay curious. Don't judge yourself or others. Often you don't have to do half as much as you were worried about when you lacked confidence. And when it's time to act, what you have to do is clear and simple. We all use habits a great deal in our life. Some habits help our confidence, others don't. So to increase our confidence, we have to amplify the habits that assist us and eliminate those that don't. Much of our thinking is habitual. It happens all by itself and is just a string of associations. Mostly, we tend to be absorbed in a task or an interest, or afloat on the river of automatic thinking. However, we can affect it. With a little effort, we can redirect our attention. It turns out that associational thinking is very powerful, so this effort has to be made over and over again. At first, it's quite unnerving to discover how easily we can be distracted. But if we repeat the effort over and over again, we gradually find that we affect our patterns of association and also increase our powers of concentration. There's one very important way we need to make this effort. Nowadays, the atmosphere of ideas in which we live is very busy. Messages bombard us from all sides, and not all of them are very healthy. On television and radio, we're asked to buy far more than we can afford, and the news is always full of doom and disaster. To protect ourselves, we learn to ignore a great deal of it, so that we're not overwhelmed. But unfortunately, we can also inadvertently ignore the beauty and blessings of life as well. So we must learn to be selective and to reinforce the positive, beautiful messages in our lives, so that we nourish the positive and beautiful in ourselves. As we pay attention to the goodness in the outside world, we strengthen it within ourselves. It's also useful to phrase things positively, to use optimistic language whenever possible. I don't mean that we should ignore difficulties or problems, but that we should always look towards the solution, not the negativity. If we use positive words to ourselves and others, we're more likely to receive positive words and messages from them. Try to avoid putting people down or putting yourself down. If you want, you can make a game of cleaning up your language. Do it by yourself or with a friend. Watch out for negative phrases like I can't, or I shouldn't, or I'll never, or I'm just not very good, or starting sentences with but or no. Whenever you hear yourself or a friend use a phrase like that, stop and rephrase it in positive terms. For example, instead of I can't do such and such, use I can learn how to do such and such, or I haven't learned to do such and such yet. There's no fixed meaning in life except the meaning that we bring to it. So let's make your life brighter.